Hello, and welcome back to J. Kerner for Astrology. We're here to explore April 5th or April 6th, depending on where you're located and tuning in from, full moon in Libra. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Jenny, and I am an astrologer who recently launched her astrology business. My goal is to gain 1,000 subscribers so that I can start monetizing my creative content here on YouTube as well, and continue to create services and tools for you to handle the transits and also navigate your own natal charts with the help of astrologers. I'd like to begin with an excerpt from Living Lunarly, Moon-Based Self-Care for Your Mind, Body, and Soul, Lunarly with Kiki Ellie. Introduction. The vibrant pink of the first blooms of April give this moon its name, just as these blooms use their beauty to signal warmer and easier seasons. Your spirit is being called to emerge from its hibernation to create warmer and easier times for others. This lunar cycle is a time for your spirit, heart, and energy to shine vibrantly. You are being called to courageously show up as your authentic self. It is time for you to identify and share your unique soul gifts with the world. This full moon is occurring at 16 degrees of Libra. A full moon is when the moon is opposite the sun in the sky, illuminating, mirroring the light of the sun. So that means the moon would be in the opposite part of the universe, part of the sky, in reference to the sun. So they will always offer an opportunity to balance two seemingly conflicting energies. This time it will be where our soul's expression, the sun, is focused in Aries on autonomy, independence, and personal power, versus where our moon, our emotional and intuitive nature, will be, which will be longing for harmony and balance, especially in our relationship to other people. Libra. The full moon in April is known more commonly as the pink moon, or the growing moon. It was named for the first and early blossoms of spring here in the Northern Hemisphere. This full moon will be highlighting the me versus we axis, Aries versus Libra. We're in Aries season, meaning that the sun is traveling through the constellation, or through, from our perspective, the constellation of Aries, influencing our soul's expression, which longs for independence, autonomy, self-sufficiency, self-expression, and alignment with authenticity, integrity, and one's true soul purpose. With Jupiter also being in the sign of Aries, and Jupiter representing expansion that leads to wisdom, this is emphasizing that energy and a major focus. The moon, which represents our emotional and intuitive nature, traveling into the constellation of Libra, the opposite side, is reminding us to apply Venusian themes of harmony and balance. We also have Mercury, which recently entered the sign of Taurus on April 3rd, just a few days ago, aligning with our North Node, fated events and destiny, in the sign of Taurus. Taurus and Libra are the two signs that Venus rules. These are all going to be focal points of today's video. The spotlight of this full moon in Libra will be on our one-on-one relationships. Those include romantic relationships and platonic relationships, especially business partnerships and anything with which we sign agreements and contracts, or anything affecting the legal system. We will be challenged to balance the needs of the other in our lives versus the needs of the self. Other can include family, the other person you're in relationship with or business partnership with, the other people that you interact with on a daily basis. It could be your network, it could be your group. Remember, with predictive astrology, it's important that you follow your rising sign, which is determined by what constellation was rising on the Eastern Hemisphere at the exact moment you were born. You would need your birth time and location to find this out, and I recommend beginning with working with an astrologer. How a specific transit, such as a full moon, will play out will entirely depend on which house the full moon falls into in your chart. The overlays of the houses and what housing system an astrologer uses to begin with is all determined by where you were born. If someone's born near the equator, we can use pretty much any chart to tell us the same thing. But if someone is born further away from the equator, for example, we would want to account for any skewing from the perspective of the planets from their location further from the equator. All of this, while you can take some messages from general astrology readings to really get detailed and personal predictive astrology for yourself, you would want to have this done with precision. Have the exact time, exact location, and work with an astrologer, or at least have that general idea for your rising sign to better follow along. With that being said, you can still get a lot of information and even start to learn the pattern of these energies from listening to these videos. You don't necessarily need everything mapped out for you. And if you're anything like me, I enjoy an element of surprise to my life. Some other themes I've noticed for this full moon involve balancing the internal, masculine, yang, or pursuing with the feminine, the attracting, the yin energies. You can look for an imbalance in those two energies, and they do. Both of those energies exist within yourself if you look inside and reflect. When imbalanced masculine comes off aggressive and domineering, chasing and not trusting, while imbalanced feminine is overly trusting to the point of naivety, trusting to the point of codependency or people-pleasing, where you could ultimately lose your whole identity in relationship or in service or servitude to other. This will also be a wonderful opportunity for us to practice attracting versus chasing in our own lives and how that relates to manifesting what we desire. We're being called to find balance between our need for freedom, autonomy, and independence and our own needs for connection and collaboration with others. We'll be challenged to hold space in our relationships and to see both sides of the coin, which is something Libra is intuitively good at, and the reason why they can be so infuriatingly indecisive at times. A tip when dealing with an air sign, by the way, is to give them a short list of 3 to 5 options from which they can choose. Otherwise, they receive decision fatigue and are overwhelmed with a world of options. Now, whenever we have a full moon, it's the completion of a 6-month cycle, the seeds for which were planted 6 months earlier during the new moon in Libra at the end of September in 2022. The exact date and time for this new moon was September 25th, 2022 at 5:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're like me and keep a journal, it might be fun to go back and look at what was on your mind around this time and see how, if anything, in what way any of that has manifested in your current reality. I feel particularly drawn to the full moon because it offers completion. It offers opportunities for us to shed what's no longer working so that we can make room to invite things that are more aligned with authenticity and with where we'd like to go. And what I've learned through experience, it's hard to plant new seeds in a weeded garden bed. First, we want to clear space, clear the clutter, work through the trauma, work through any of the baggage that you've carried from previous relationships, etc., etc. Clear all of that out so that when you're inviting new ones in, they're aligned with the work that you've done, not with the work that needs to be done. So remember how I said a full moon is opposite the sun being in Aries and the moon being in Libra? That opposition, while challenging, offers a beautiful opportunity to balance through the opposition of extremes. First, let me reintroduce to you some themes of Aries: independence, autonomy, assertion, athleticism, self-sufficiency. Like the ram that symbolizes them, they tend to have a act first, think later, head first, sometimes even headstrong or stubborn mentality. Aries energy rules over the head, among other things. When imbalanced, Aries energy turns everything into a competition and can be overly self-focused at the detriment of its relationships with others. It can also want to appear so self-sufficient so as to sacrifice its relationships with others. These are all themes that we'll be exploring and healing through this full moon and this upcoming rest of Aries season. Libra, on the other hand, is very Venusian in nature. It's Venus ruled, like its sister sign Taurus. It's focused on harmony and balance, beauty, aesthetics, conflict and negotiation, fairness, justice, and equality. It's highly sociable because it's highly other-focused. Now, when imbalanced, Libra can look conflict avoidant, so fearful of hurting or offending others that they might even lie to them so as to not upset them, or stay in a relationship after it's become toxic out of fear of hurting the other person or for anyone else's reasons that would come potentially before their own. Libra can also be, and no judgment here, Libra, this is my sun sign, my rising sign, my Venus sign, and my Mercury sign, all in conjunction, all rising, except 2 in my 12th, one of them being my chart ruler, which is exalted here. That is all jibber jabber for the Venus is strong in me. The Libra is strong in me. It's very similar to having a strong Piscean influence or a strong Cancerian influence, possibly even a strong Virgo influence. All of those signs are very other, service, and nurturing focused. And when imbalanced, they can fall into the same unhealthy patterns with weak boundaries. I get it. I've been there. I have completely lost my identity in relationship to others. I have completely lost careers, jobs, taking my mother to rehab over and over and over again until learning the lesson, the balance, and putting the needs of myself, my own future, my own stability, my own peace, Venus, in balance, harmony with the needs of others who are in relationship to me, be them my family, be them my romantic partners, or be them my friend, social groups, or networks. All of these require balance. Now, looking back to September 25th, 2022, we were in the middle of a Mercury retrograde in Libra, while the Sun and Moon were in Libra for the new moon, opposite Jupiter in Aries, expanding underneath, expanding and healing, ultimately, what we're working on now, these needs for autonomy, independence, and being able to sustain oneself. Our relationships are Libra things. We were reflecting on them. We were specifically reflecting on how we want to be loved and love others in return. I'm curious, if you keep a journal, look back to your journal and let me know if that aligns with any cycle that's completing for you around this time. Now I want to talk to you a little bit more about what's going on with the major aspects. So we have 2 signs in the chart here that have multiple planetary bodies in conjunction with each other. So that gives us 2 primary focal areas. We have our sun, which shines a light wherever it goes, so we'll always want to highlight that. With Chiron and Jupiter, Jupiter expands, leading to wisdom, so you'll also want to highlight where Jupiter is. Jupiter and the Sun being together in Aries is beneficial and strong, but we have Chiron there, diluting the energy a little bit, and also bringing up some wounds of the self to the surface for us to actively work through. Now remember, these triggers are meant to do exactly that. They're meant to increase your awareness so that you can hold that awareness into consciousness and actively work through that trigger to leave it in the past and not carry it into your future or your present, where it will continue to repeat, etc. We want to work through it and let it go. Drop the baggage. Now, that is happening in opposition to where our emotional and intuitive nature is longing for harmony and balance, especially in our relationships to others, versus our needs with self, and directly tied to its sister sign Taurus and the conjunction that's occurring there. It's 2 sets of conjunctions, but we have 5 major planetary bodies in the sign of Taurus, previewing what's coming on our horizon during Taurus season, which is pretty major. At the time of this full moon, the North Node, ruling our fated events and destiny, what we're collectively moving toward, which has been in the sign of Taurus since January of 2022 and has a couple of months left there, is aligned with Mercury, which is where our collective conscious, logical, aware minds are. So similar to the sun, this is a focal point. It's where our minds are. Our minds are focused on our money and our resources. Also in the sign of Taurus, a little bit further down, we have Juno, Uranus, and Venus. Juno is an asteroid representing our long-term commitments. Juno was Jupiter's wife. Jupiter also representing what we commit to in the long term. Venus represents what we love and value. It can also give us clues to the work we do to fill our own cup and self-confidence and our own resourcefulness. Uranus rules Aquarian energy, and it's the planet of rebellion and change. So we can look for unexpected, possibly fated events happening, affecting our long-term commitments, directly tied to the work we do or the things that we love and value. Because this alignment is happening with an exact conjunction of the North Node and Mercury, our awareness, we'll be coming into awareness around this time. This full moon will be kickstarting something for us that we will later be reflecting on in Taurus season when we have our sun focused, our soul's expression dedicated to our resourcefulness and our finances with a Mercury retrograde through the sign of Taurus, further forcing us to slow down and reflect upon all Taurian themes. Stability, security, especially concerning our resources and our finances. Now, we also have Mars in Cancer coming into play. Mars in Cancer is focused on matters of the home and family, and it'll be working with Saturn in Pisces and the Mercury and North Node in the early degrees of Taurus. So we can look for being more deliberate and intentional with our words and actions, more energy, more clarity, better communication, and most importantly, increased empathy and compassion in our communication. If there is anything on your mind or any unresolved karma, it's in your favor to write that apology, send that apology that you've been sitting on a while. If you've lacked the courage to say how you feel or say what's on your mind, the planets are in your favor right now that you will not only courageously, empathetically, and compassionately communicate this message, that it will be well received. Some additional themes for April 2023 and what's coming up astrologically on the horizon. We'll see a dominance of masculine, yang energy through the month of April, but this will shift into more of a feminine yin dominance as we move into May. The theme for the next few weeks and month ahead will be on reconciliation. Reconciliation both in our relationships with others and self-reconciliation. We are coming into awareness of how we have allowed unhealthy thought patterns to block us from manifesting. These triggers that have been arising have been serving as reminders of the work we've done. They're tests, remember. So if you've done the work, then the tests that come back up, those obstacles, they're easy and you can quickly move past them. If you haven't done the work, it'll be another opportunity to go through and process it. And if you're not ready, don't worry, it'll be back. But on the other side of that same coin, why not do the work now and prevent having to do it later? We're feeling a need and a want to both have independence, self-sufficiency, and autonomy, but also work together and collaborate. New things and projects, things we've been focused on, are taking off with tremendous speed right now, and they're being received far bigger than we can even imagine. We will receive some tests to our alignment and our healing. This is also influenced by Saturn, our planet of time and karma, being in Pisces, with Neptune, under the influence of Neptune in Pisces, with the South Node also in Scorpio. So we're shedding those two things combined. We're shedding the shadow of Pisces and Scorpio. We're shedding victim playing, over-identification with victim mentality for Pisces. For Scorpio, it could be victim mentality, or it could be resentment, clinging to past pain or anger, anything that prevents us from being present or enjoying the here and now. Water signs definitely need reminding of letting that go. And we're receiving tests to our security, stability, our resourcefulness, and our self-confidence and self-esteem, which often go hand in hand with our ability to provide resources for ourselves and others, especially our loved ones and our immediate family unit, which will be focused on now more than ever the next 2 months with Mars in Cancer. We'll be questioning whether we stay in things for security or if they're aligned with our authentic soul purpose. While Pluto was in Capricorn, this heavy Capricornian, almost lustfully power-driven energy pulled us into an intensely shadow side of capitalism that really isn't sustainable and is only profitable for a small percentage of the economy, or rather population. Hustle culture led to burnout, forcing us to believe that we could do it all in our lifetime, that we could maintain multiple jobs while maintaining our health, all in the name of hustle culture, that we could hold down full-time jobs while rearing children. All of this peaked during the pandemic, when children were forced to learn remotely, teachers forced to teach remotely, and parents forced to figure out how to excel in their now remote career while also supervising children who very much need presence and hands-on assistance when learning. We've learned that we just simply can't be it all, and we have to prioritize, and we have to choose. But remember, it's in these moments that test us, that force our hand and force our creativity and show us that we had the power to turn our dreams into a reality all along. We needed only plant the seeds and take the actions to show that we're committed to those dreams.
Let's recap our recent astrological history for March 2023. On March 16th, Venus went into Taurus, one of its signs of rulership, where it will remain until April 11th before transiting into Gemini. On March 21st, my last big video, we had our spring equinox, the beginning of our Aries season, and our first new moon at 0 degrees of Aries at 1:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a couple of days later, on March 23rd, Pluto entered the early degrees of Aquarius, where it's answering to Uranus and Taurus, and still Saturn, but now Saturn is in Pisces, through June 11th. When it heads back into the 29th degree of Capricorn during its retrograde. More on that later. Just a couple of days after that, on Saturday, March 25th, Mars entered Cancer, where it's debilitated and answering to the moon until May 20th. And on March 30th and 31st, right around the time I was wrapping up the final edits to this video, Uranus and Venus aligned in Taurus, both answering to Venus in Taurus. Now, just before this full moon, on March 3rd, Mercury entered the sign of Taurus, meaning our conscious logical minds are aligned with what we love and value, our resources, and focus on our money. Then we have the topic of today's video, the full moon on April 6th, and Venus entering Gemini a few days later on April 11th. While Venus is in Gemini and Mercury is in Taurus, the two will have traded rulers, meaning that they're in mutual reception and working very closely together through May and into the beginning of June. On April 20th, we have our new moon solar eclipse at the last final critical energetic degree, 29 degrees of Aries, at 12:12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and having 2 new moons in the sign of Aries, with this one ending at the critical. It's going to be something big. We also have, just after that, the beginning of Taurus season. On April 21st, we have Mercury beginning its retrograde. It'll retrograde through the sign of Taurus through May 14th, and then it'll return to forward direction through June 11th. But for all of April, May, and the beginning of June, our conscious, logical minds will be focused on our money, our resources, and how resourceful we are. It will also involve the work that we do and whether or not that is aligned with our authentic soul purpose. This is a double whammy because, again, Venus and Mercury, they have traded their signs have traded their rulers. We've got Venus in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury in Taurus, Taurus being ruled by Venus. They've traded rulers. They're working very closely together. Since Mars, our planet of motivation and drive, is answering to the moon while it's in the sign of Cancer the next 2 months through May 20th, I wanted to create some sort of a visual to help you navigate the energy. So in this calendar, feel free to take a screenshot. I've put the moon sign for each day along with the major moon phases, which I'll give you a shortcut. They're on Thursdays. I've also given you the planet associated with each day of the week. And if you look into the word origin for each day of the week, you'll find that it's tied to a Greek or Roman myth, and that is tied to a planet. I have tracked in red where the sun will be. So in red is when the sun is in Aries, and then beginning on April 20th, we have the sun in Taurus. This will get you through to the next video, which will be new moon solar eclipse, 29 degrees of Aries, April 20th, aiming to put that out a few days before the event. So you'll hear from me sometime between now and then. Pay attention also to Mercury. That's where our conscious minds are. It will be in Taurus by the time you see this video, and it will be there for 2 months. It'll be in mutual reception. Venus and Mercury will be in mutual reception together through the beginning of May. We also have Jupiter leaving Aries in the middle of May for Taurus, further emphasizing these Taurus themes that will take us well into the beginning of summer. And here is a close-up of the next 2 weeks, something to focus on. So around the time you see this video, the moon will either still be in Leo, which is a great time to create and do things like filming, or it will be in Virgo, where it becomes focused on the edits and perfecting and all the finishing touches, making outlines and efficient systems to improve the process for next time. While that energy then shifts into Libra sometime on Wednesday and Thursday, building into and culminating with our full moon in Libra, highlighting again our one-on-one relationships. When moon in Libra has finished its sparkle, it'll shift into Scorpio, taking us into the weekend, shifting into a more fun, sociable. Not to say Scorpio is not fun, it's just not fun right now because the South Node is there. So the South Node represents karma, ego. So every time the moon is in Scorpio, the past 18 months or so, it's been triggering parts of us that we don't want to admit that are there. The ego, the shadow self, that we're supposed to let go of. And by bringing them into conscious awareness and accepting them, acknowledging them, and then saying, okay, but that's not who I choose to be, that's how you put it behind you. Leading into the beginning of the week after the moon will be in Sagittarius, where it's sociable, outgoing, adventurous, fun, but it can also be super indulgent, overly indulgent, so watch for overspending, overeating, etc. When the moon shifts into Capricorn, I get a ton of work done, so you can really channel that energy. With Mars in Cancer answering to the moon, and Mars being exalted in Capricorn, this is a tremendous aspect, allowing us to channel all that pent-up energy. Whenever the moon is in Aquarius is one of my big excuses to deep dive into Aquarius, things that are collectively not commonly accepted. But it'll also be in trine to Pluto, easing us into this otherwise rough transition. And with the moon shifting into Pisces at the beginning of next week, it's dreamy, creative, intuitive. Look to your dreams for messages. Look to music. Look to songs. Especially with Saturn in Pisces answering to Neptune in its sign of rulership in Pisces. A really awesome time to do some healing and to tap into that creativity and that intuition if you're clear-minded and sober. On this tracker, we have the major lunar cycles, the new moons and the full moons alternating. So in the darker green color, we have the new moons. Highlighted in yellow is the topic of today's video. And you'll see me next time for the Aries new moon at 29 degrees of Aries solar eclipse.
For working with the Aries energy, I recommend citrine. Enhances creativity, focus, clarity of mind, and energy. Great for initiating those projects. For the Libra energy, I recommend working with rose quartz. Quartz is a great energy for working with the full moon. The full moon can be really intense, so I wouldn't use something like moonstone. That would be a little too much. Rose quartz is associated with relationships, balance, and harmony. You can also work with opal. Libra is associated with a couple of stones. Opal is one of them. Tourmaline is another, that have the capacity of reflecting the full color spectrum. And it's a really nice symbol for Libra energy, which also intuitively has this almost chameleon-like ability to intuit, to sense whatever the group needs, and to become that. They can almost absorb, all air signs are good at this, but they can almost absorb and mirror the energy of whatever the group is and whatever the group needs. Because this is a full moon involving air and fire, Libra, air, and Aries, cardinal fire, you can burn incense, patchouli, sandalwood, Palo Santo. That's more associated with Leo, so if you have a lot of Leo energy in your chart like I do, Palo Santo may be a really nice one for you. Those are great for clearing the air and for grounding. You can open a window in the back of the house, light the Palo Santo toward the front of the house, let the air pull through, cleanse it. It's also good around the new and full moon to clean house. That's every 2 weeks. So depending on how deep or how much time you want to spend cleaning, you'll obviously want to clean and touch up between then as well. I have 2 dogs, so it happens quite frequently. But it's, as a general rule, nice to, at least around the full moon, do a general decluttering, a weeding out, so that things don't accumulate too much. The more clutter and things we hold on to, along with dust and dog hair and the things that we let build up, they're symbolic of karma. We want to make sure we're consciously aware and clearing that out, both physically in our environments and mentally in our heads, so that we're not manifesting this karma in the 3D, in our reality. You can also use binaural beats. I play them in the background. and you can use Tibetan singing bowls. So I have one here. This one's associated, I hope to have a whole collection of them one day, and I'd really like a glass one. This one will do just fine. It's associated with the root chakra. I don't know if this is the air trine in my chart, my air dominance of personal planets, or just my appreciation of beautiful things, but they have perfect pitch. And cleanse the energy through sound. You can also tune your voice with it. If you like to work with herbs, some herbs I would recommend at this time include rosemary, lavender, and passion flower. The short answer is it's going to affect everyone. You all have Aries in your chart, Taurus in your chart, Libra in your chart, and you all have a moon sign somewhere in your chart. Where those are will be specific to you and your chart, when and where you were born. Predictive astrology is based on your rising sign as they show what's coming on the horizon. That is indicated by the time you were born and what constellation or planets or planetary bodies were rising at that exact time of your birth. Consult an astrologer or one of my other videos, which I'll be putting out soon, for how to generate this yourself. So who will be most impacted by the full moon in Libra? Anyone with a stellium, a personal planet, or one of the below rising signs will feel the energies. Rising signs show what's coming, so look there first. For this full moon in Libra, there's a strong emphasis of energy in both Aries and Libra. So Aries and Libra, risings especially, but suns, moons, any personal planet, especially Mercury, Mars, Venus, or especially if you have 3 or more placements within Libra or Aries, you will feel this more than the average individual. I'm here with you. I'm a Libra sun and rising. My descendant is in the opposite sign of Aries. This axis has had a lot of activity for me for quite some time. Other signs that will be affected in challenging position will have Cancer and Capricorn. They'll be forming a square to this Libra-Aries axis. That challenging position is calling for a need to integrate or balance 2 seemingly conflicting energies. So those will also be activated in a challenging way around this time. Taurus is also ruled by Venus. So Taurus, especially rising, sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, especially 3 or more placements. Those personal placements especially strong, but other placements can be an indicator as well. We'll notice this as well. I've decided to try a swing at predictive astrology, so look out for my series coming out shortly where I will be exploring predictive astrology by rising sign. Decided to try this by releasing shorts by rising sign. That way you can go specifically to the rising sign that's relevant for you. I recommend starting with your rising sign, but since it's a full moon and we have Mars and everything that's in Aries, the Sun, Jupiter, Chiron, answering to the planet that rules Aries, which is Mars, which is in the sign of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. You still with me? it's all answering to the full moon. So you may want to also check out your moon sign for this one. If you have time, your sun sign is also good to check out. Or if that's all you know, that's okay too. And if you don't know your exact birth time, don't worry. A really good astrologer can always help you out. What's on your ascendant is easily perceived by other people, especially people who don't know you so well. The midheaven is your public reputation, so anything around the midheaven or in the 10th house of your chart will be highly visible. This is all jibber jabber, astrological talk for. We can help you narrow down your birth time by first figuring out what's most obvious and visible in your personality to better predict what might fall into or around those two key visible and very strong placements within your chart.